Welcome, everybody, to Big Red Nation channel here on YouTube. My name is Jason. Let's just go ahead and get into it, shall we? Shall we talk about it? Let's talk about it. Of course, we got to start off with tonight's game. Husker Volleyball loses in 5 sets to Texas A&M. And, man, I've got some thoughts. Luckily, it's been a while now, so I've been able to just kind of like gather my thoughts, calm down a little bit. But at least through the first 2 sets, I'll say that. Through the first 2 sets, it's really no different than what's been happening the last handful of years. Whenever we finally get to a tough opponent in the NCAA tournament, and it's like we always have 1 or 2 star players that just kind of vanish. And tonight it was Andy Jackson. And I'm not saying like vanish as in like they didn't come out to play hard or anything like that. It's just like, that's just the luck. Like nothing goes right for somebody. Like last year was Merritt Beeson. Or yeah, I guess it would have been last year. Merritt Beeson, like Lexi even kind of struggled in games. All that stuff. Tonight, Harper, I thought, really kept the team in the whole match. Really kind of kept them in. Was definitely one of the deciding factors in that third set to keep the match alive. We had freshmen that came in and kind of stepped up, but the usual people really struggled. And didn't know, like I knew about Campbell Flynn, that she was going to be out the rest of the year with an injury. Didn't know that Allie Check also was injured. Didn't find that out until after the game. And then apparently Bergen was still dealing with something, an illness or something that she's been kind of dealing with here for a while. And it's just kind of like, of course, all these things just happen to hit. And then, of course, you're dealing with, kind of the overall frustration, kind of the same thing that we'll deal with when watching a Husker football game, whenever we start going, here we go again. And it kind of felt like that through the first 2 sets of just like, really? I thought this team was going to be different this year, but here we go again. We're facing a team that's pretty good, that's playing kind of hot. They're finally giving us a tough game, and we just look like we're not. I mean, every hit, like we're spiking balls straight into their hands. It's like they could block everything. They knew exactly where we were going with every play, and they're just there to block it. And we had no answer for anything that they were doing. No answer defensively. Even got to a point where like DBK just sat Andy. And even like Virginia was kind of struggling. She started playing well later. Definitely the third and fourth set, and especially that fourth set, Becca Alec was like trying to be like, no, this is not happening. This is not going to be my last game. And she freaking willed that team between her and Harper into that 5th set. And I just kept waiting since we couldn't capitalize on 10 match set points in that 4th set. I'm waiting. Okay, when's that going to come back to bite us? Like you got 10 chances to win the set and you can't do it. Was tough. Don't get me wrong. If I'm not a fan, if I'm just watching that from afar, you're going, oh my God, what an amazing match. What a back and forth battle. And it was, but whenever you're a fan of a team, in that situation, you're really capitalizing more on the things that they weren't doing to pull out that win. So, and then of course, this has nothing to do with the game as far as like whether or not we won or lose. But then like, and why is it whenever? So 2 things. Number 1, Trev kind of screwed our university and our athletic department over a little bit by the way he left. Now, not saying that he left our department in a bad situation, just more of like personally how he left to go to A&M. But it's like ever since he left, every time that we get matched up in any sport with A&M, A&M's the one that comes out and just like demolishes us and makes us look like absolute amateurs. And I don't get that. Shouldn't the karma like be in our favor in that situation at least one time? That part was also kind of getting frustrating. Remember texting my dad that at one point, like, why is it like whenever we get paired up with A&M, just like A&M just comes out and just ragdolls us. But the other thing was like, we're the number one team in the nation. We're the best team going in. You know, I'm not saying they shouldn't ever talk about A&M, but like we're on national TV and it's like they're not pushing Nebraska volleyball whatsoever. Like the only time that they brought up like our streaks was to say was in whenever they were talking when saying what A&M could be breaking, what history A&M could be making if they were to win. That's the only time like they brought up, you know, like Husker volleyball history. They had no stories ready for like any of our players, but shit, they had like 5 different stories about theirs. Talking to Logan Lenicki's dad out there in the stands, talking about Towers or whatever her name is. Talking about, I mean, they're talking about like 4 or 5 different girls on their side and have all these story backgrounds. Meanwhile, half the time they were calling Virginia Adriano Osiaro. Like, you can't even get one of our players' names right, but you have 5 background stories ready to go for A&M. I mean, Nebraska volleyball is one of the main reasons why women's volleyball is becoming so popular. And you can't give any respect to that side of the ball. I understand we were losing in the first 2 sets, and usually in a broadcast, you're talking up the team that is playing better. I understand that. But this is a different situation. I mean, nothing. I mean, the broadcasters never brought up like anything that Nebraska was dealing with as far as injuries, the Bergen Rally illness, or whatever she's dealing with. Nothing. Never brought any of this stuff up. Not that I'm saying they need to make, you know, hey, let's make excuses for the number one team, but that's part of being a, you know, journalist or broadcaster for the game. You're setting the stage. But yeah, so anyway, overall, good season, right? Obviously, we're 34 and 0 or 33 and 0 going into this game. Dominated, went on the huge streaks of not even losing a set. But at the same time, whenever you've done this style of season, not quite to this level, but pretty close to 3-4 seasons in a row, and every season ends in the same, you lose like this either in the Elite 8 or the Final Four or in the national championship game. Like that's tough. Something, you know, we kept saying this in the football realm with Scott Frost teams, like, come on, something's got to change to get over that hump. And, you know, now we've changed the coach and we felt like that was going to be different and it ended up not being different. You know, hopefully something will happen and something will change in just the makeup of this team and they'll come to play a little bit harder. And again, whenever I say that, I'm not saying like they didn't bring it, because I don't think that's the case. I think what the case ends up being is they're unable mentally to match that opponent where they're at mentally as far as going into that game and the emotion that they have into that game. Brought it up again. I know I keep referring back to football, but it's just like that. Whenever I brought up in past videos, whenever I talk about how, you know, I wish Matt Rule and our football team would love beating this certain team, said rival, Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, whatever, Penn State, as much as they love beating us. And sometimes I think because Nebraska is so good in volleyball and does get praised so much, that it's just mentally tougher, whether they're trying to or not. It's just factually mentally tougher for them to get their level of passion and want to anywhere close to where an A&M can be. Because A&M, they can go the whole disrespected route. You know, their head coach, they showed some of his pregame stuff talking about, I'm not scared of him. Well, we're playing volleyball, right? Like we're playing sports. What do you mean scared of them? Who? But anyway, that's mentally where he went. That's where he went with his motivation. Is we're not scared because we're just as good, if not better. We can do this. We can win. We just beat Louisville in 5. And meanwhile, what's DBK going to say? Hey, guys, let's just go out there and be who we are. Right? A little different speech, a little bit different headspace that you're in for these games. So I don't really know the full-blown answer to that outside of maybe you just got to make up something to get the motivation and the emotion and the passion to level up to where you should know your opponent's level of that motivation is going to be at. But again, to the seniors, it sucks. It sucks, specifically for Becca Alec. Sucks that she's not going to be back again to give it another shot. But to all the returning girls, you know, again, I know last year you said you're going to learn from that experience. You know, let's try to keep learning and just try to get even better. And now instead of just being better physically and technically, let's get better mentally. Let's get mentally, motivationally better at being passionate about these games. And try to go in one next year, because I'm sure this team is going to be damn good again next year. I mean, how can it not be whenever you've got Bergen, Olivia, you got Laney? I mean, this team's going to be sick, man. I mean, you saw some freshmen jump up this year, obviously for Virginia, but even in this game, gosh, I can't think of her name that she jumped in this game. Oh, for Andy. Oh, sorry, my name's escaping me right now. But yeah, so anyway, that's a tough way to go today. Kind of ruined my afternoon, you know? I mean, obviously it's ruined theirs a lot too, but you know, it's one of those things like usually just Husker football does that for me, but now, you know, Husker volleyball is getting up there pretty quick. It's such a great game, just volleyball in general, because it's a lot like hockey, as in it's such an intense sport because you could go on a nice huge volley, but any second is a point. At any second, boom, there could be a point. Now obviously in hockey there's a lot less scoring, but that's kind of what makes it so intense, is because you know 1 or 2 goals could win you that thing. So, you know, if it's getting really close and you're on defense, you start freaking out because you're like, oh, well, we can't let them have this 1 goal, even if it's in the first period, because that could be the only goal of the whole game. And then on the other end, and you know that all it takes is a split second, the puck's by you and it's in the thing. It's kind of the same way with volleyball. You could score right away on an ace, on a serve. Could be just hearing a couple passes, or you could go on all of a sudden this huge, like, minute-long volley. That's kind of the beauty of the sport. So it's really kind of, you know, I've always kind of watched it a little bit, even back in high school. My high school that I went to had a pretty good women's volleyball team. So, like, we'd watch it a little bit. We'd go to games. But especially here lately, I've really been able to dive more into volleyball, and I've really gotten into it. So I look forward to it, and it's starting to kind of make my day or ruin my day whenever I watch it. So, just great season, girls, and let's try it again next year. Let's talk about a good thing, though, that happened yesterday. Men's basketball. Man, what a win against Illinois. Go on the road, play the 13th ranked team in the nation, and really control the game for most of the game. I think the only time that Illinois led in the game was the initial points, like when it was like 2-0, I think. If I remember correctly. Every other time was just tied. The best they got was tied. And then, of course, they tied it very late again, played it up for the last second play. Jamarcus Lawrence with a nice 3-ball, sunk it in with 0.2 seconds left in the game and won it. What huge wins for men's basketball against Creighton. Blew them out, blew out Wisconsin, and then went on the road against 13th ranked Illinois, won on the road, which is huge and so hard to do in the Big Ten. Winning on the road in the Big Ten, no matter the ranking of the opponent, is insanely tough. Man, that's awesome. And now, like, the projected record of our team is 24-7. I mean, that's a 4 or 5 seed in the tournament. If we can get a 4 or 5 seed in the tournament, we might finally get our first tournament this year. It's going to be huge. I mean, huge. But man, we got a legit, after watching that Illinois game, not just because we did beat Illinois on the road, 13th ranked team in the nation, but we have a legit team because there's been several games I've watched this year, and I'm like, we still didn't play necessarily like a very good, complete game. We went on runs, but we never played like a full, great, complete game, right? There'd be like, oh, we kind of struggled in the first half, or we killed in the first half, kind of struggled in the beginning of the second half, but we caught fire again, and blah, blah, blah. In the Illinois game, in the first half, we did not play well. Price Sanford played well. Price Sanford kept us in that game. Period. And we were able, well, that in our defense. But, you know, that's what good teams do. Good teams, no matter if they're coming out hot or not, or playing a perfect game, they will find ways to win. And the way that we found, how am I saying this? The way we found to win that game, that way was Price Sanford getting hot and then riding him in that first half, which was smart. That's what you do. You have a guy that's that on fire. Now your offense runs through him until he gets cold. And, you know, so then they got to half, came out. He was a little cold, so then it became Jamarcus Lawrence and ranked mass time. And then even Jared Garcia got in and got 10 points, played well. And again, just the defense overall just played well. This is a very good defensive team. But yeah, so a huge, huge week for the men's basketball team. Just absolutely huge. I can't wait to see what we're going to end up being ranked. And then, of course, you know, the next 2 games are 2 cupcake games. Can't remember exactly who they are, but 2 very winnable games, should be very easy wins. So going into Michigan State, we should be 13-0. 13-0. And I'm going to say maybe by that time, we'll be ranked like 13th or so. So then that sets up a huge, awesome game for that Michigan State game. So I think this is going to be a real fun season watching the men's basketball team. I really, really do. All right. Got that out of the way. Let's talk about it. Let's talk all the Husker football news. Since my last video after the Iowa game, a lot of things have changed. Some things have remained the same. but let's just go through it. Since that Iowa game, Matt Rule has fired John Butler, Donovan Raiola, and Terry Braden. The Butler one was a little surprising, just a little bit, because I think, after the Iowa game on that video, I believe I said, I do think there needs to be some changes, but also it feels like Rule, it really wants some consistency. I think he feels like he hasn't had that, where he had very good coaching consistency in his previous stops where he had a lot of success by that year 3. So I wasn't quite sure where he was going with it. But apparently his comments about, toxic people, some of these other things, I think that was pretty clear that was all talked about with John Butler. I think there was just a lot of clash. I think by the end of the year, if you even look at some of the things John Butler said in press conferences as well, I think he got tired of coaching in college. I think he got tired of having to deal with kids and actually teaching. I think he definitely wants more to be an NFL style coach where he's just dealing with guys that pretty much already know what they're doing. And the coaching in that level is more of getting guys into spots, teaching them a system, and them just kind of do what they got to do. Instead of in college, you got to teach technique. You got to teach a lot of other stuff. You got to kind of get the motivation drummed up. And I don't think he wanted to do any of that. I also have a feeling John Butler probably didn't want to do a whole lot of recruiting. And I just don't think that flies in that rule. But the Donovan Raiola firing was something that I was actually very happy about. I think I've been pretty vocal on here about the whole Donovan thing. Look, a lot of people try to use the whole, well, his offensive lines always get better by the end of the year. Yeah, I guess. But when are we going to finally have that year where they start off the year good and then still maybe get a little bit better as the year goes on? Starting off the year being absolute dog shit, like you guys haven't practiced at all during the offseason, to getting to the point to where you're just okay, doesn't cut it. Also, like I said, his recruiting has not been great and his development's not been good. Whenever your 3 of your top offensive linemen are guys that have had insanely amount of injuries and are playing on 5 bad legs and 2 bad shoulders, that's a problem. That's a problem. I mean, a guy like Teddy Prohaska and Turner Corcoran, those kind of guys should be your veterans that are like second or third team guys that if a couple injuries happen, hey, they're good trusty old guys to be able to put in. Not be your starters. Again, reading between the lines, a lot of the problems with Micah Mazuka last year was him and Donovan Raiola butting heads. And some of the problems, I think, to start the season this year with Elijah Pritchett not getting on the field was a little bit of more of Donovan trying to establish dominance instead of playing the best offensive lineman. And I think it just clashed. And I think it's finally been time to say bye. And again, if that meant that Dylan was leaving, so what? One guy cannot control the entire program like that. And to be honest with you, whenever a lot of people were talking about that, my actual stance is I don't think Donovan getting fired would cause Dylan to leave. Like, I don't think that single-handedly would ever make Dylan leave. Because most the teams that he was originally going to sign with weren't hiring Donovan Raiola. There were no connections to him. In fact, him being on our staff, him being on Scott Frost's staff, right, was supposed to bring Dylan. No, and he didn't. He went to Georgia. It wasn't until the last hour where he committed, and I don't think it was just because of Donovan. I think what Donovan being on the staff helped with was communication, little behind closed doors conversations, because you can't tell Donovan to not, hey, you can't talk to your nephew. Of course, he could talk to his nephew. He couldn't do anything in official coaching capacity, but Uncle Donovan Raiola could talk to nephew Dylan Raiola. And I'm sure he could get in his ear and be like, hey, don't forget, we'd still love to have you in a quick text message or a phone call, or hey, you're talking to Dom. Hey, Dom, don't forget to tell Dylan. Meanwhile, he's on speakerphone or something. You know what I mean? That's where maybe it helped. But so I don't think, and also everybody talking about Dylan leaving. Well, if Dylan's leaving, they're not just going to go hire Donovan. So the whole connection between Dylan and Donovan, and that's why he would leave, was always a dumb argument. But anyway, Donovan's gone. Good. And then we finally fired Terry Braden. I was a little surprised by that one as well. Not because the defensive line played so well this year, just again, more of like, I thought he, first year with a lot of young guys, maybe he was going to get another year to work with the guys and prove himself as a defensive line coach. That didn't come to play. Hearing some things like from Sean Callahan and others on their different podcasts and reporting sounded kind of like they were kind of more of a parting of the ways. It kind of seemed like they were maybe going to demote him a little bit and bring in other people, and he didn't really want to deal with that. And he was kind of ready to get out of college too. College wasn't necessarily the style of coaching he wanted to do either. So they kind of were just like, okay, you're fired. So then you can take the money and blah, 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 and we're good to go. So then that brings me to the hires. The official hires at defensive coordinator, Bob Orich from San Diego State, offensive line coach Jeep Wade from Georgia Tech, and another offensive line coach, but maybe he's just more of a recruiter. Not quite sure what his job is going to be. Let's say Lonnie Teasley. Hold on. Yes, Lonnie Teasley from South Carolina. It sounds like he's going to be more, or at least the initial reports that I saw, I believe said he was going to be kind of maybe more of like a recruiting guy, but I'm sure he'll help out with the offensive line. I personally do think two offensive line coaches are the best. You have one that works with the inside. You have one guy that works with the tackles and can help with tight ends whenever they want to come over and learn the blocking part of it. You have your tight end coach that actually teaches them some of the other actual like receiving part of it. Sorry. Then we also have, and I don't know if it's been officially announced either, but Roy Manning as the edge coach. He will coach the edges. He also comes from San Diego State with Bob Orich. My thoughts on these hires are overall, I think they're going to be good hires. The one I'm probably the most, I guess, iffy on, the most wait and see, is going to be our defensive coordinator, Bob Orich. Mainly just because he doesn't have a long history. And I don't know. I kind of go back and forth on this. The coaches in the Big Ten, though, it has nothing to do with level of players. To me, it has everything to do with the level of coaching in the Big Ten. The level of coaching in the Big Ten is so elite. It is so good. Even the bad teams have very good coaches, very good experienced coaches, whether it be positions, coordinators, head coaches. Okay. They have such good coaches that it's much harder of a grind week in and week out to do your X's and O's to out scheme these other teams. And we've seen that now a lot. initially maybe for the first couple games, guys look really good. Once you get on tape, then all of a sudden we start seeing our team struggle. I think we've even seen that with somebody that has experience like Dana. I think Dana Holgerson is used to having some not great up and coming coaches in the Big 12 at all of his stops. West Virginia, Houston, whenever he was at Oklahoma State, Texas Tech. You could get away with some other coaches facing some other teams with some other coaching staffs that maybe aren't great because they don't have the money to always have these amazing coaches up and down their whole coaching roster on these different teams. And you come to the Big Ten, and all of a sudden you kind of struggle. And I think we've seen that with Dana. I think that's kind of part of his struggles that we've had the last year in 4 games. Once he has a system, all of a sudden they kind of figure it out, and you're going up against, defensive coordinators like in back-to-back weeks like Jim Knowles and Phil Parker, and you're like, you never saw 2 defensive coordinators in a whole season, let alone in back-to-back games like that whenever you're a coach in the Big 12. Just don't. So, how is Bob Orich going to deal with that? How is he going to adapt? How is he going to play that cat and mouse game after game? Now, I have no doubts that he's going to be able to teach and coach the players on this team, the system, to be very well and technique sound and play with emotion and play with a certain style that Matt Rule wants these defensive players to play with. Again, it's going to be, how does he go up against these other offensive coordinators on these other teams day in and day out of the Big Ten? That's where my biggest worry is. Because literally everything you see guys like Adam McClintock and a bunch of other big number guys that are saying this is an amazing hire. This guy is like one of the top 5 defensive coordinators in the country. And he's young, going to be energetic, loves to recruit, loves to work hard, loves to do all these different things. So my hope is, yes, awesome. He could end up turning out to be an amazing coach. But that's what worries me, is just more of like him going up against these offensive coordinators week after week in the Big Ten. I think offensive line coaches, I think he hit it out of the park. Huge upgrade with Jeep Wade and Lonnie Teasley. Both really good coaches. Both have some very good resumes. In the 4 years Donovan Raiola was here, he didn't put one single offensive lineman in the NFL. Lineman in the NFL. Jeep Wade has had 5 guys in 3 years. So I think huge upgrade. I think he's a well-known developer. He's obviously a good recruiter. Look for in the portal maybe a couple of his Georgia Tech guys to come this way. And then I'm hoping that he can develop guys like a Slam Sledge, a Brock Canuston, a Grant Bricks, a Gibson Pyle, Preston Tuamoa, the Houston, God, I'm going to butcher that middle name, Torres, Jason Machachok, something like that. I hope he can develop those guys as well. Who knows? Maybe all of a sudden we see Gunnar Gatula move into a guard position, because that's probably what he should be playing, not at tackle. I'm very excited for that. Roy Manning, he's been in a lot of different places, USC, Texas, all this stuff. You can look up and down. Those guys had good edge rushers. Last year, his edge rushers were pretty good at San Diego State. I know, again, different level, but still, good coaches are good coaches. It's just depending on, can he get, again, can they out scheme the coaches that they're going to be going up against at this level? It's going to come down to, I think they're still going to be able to develop. I think they're still going to be able to make guys better players. It's just more, again, the scheming. One of the other big rumors out there right now, though, too, is at defensive line, bringing in Elijah Robinson, which would be an amazing hire, a home run hire for Matt Rule. former Texas A&M defensive line coach, where he got, top recruiter that year, brought in like all these different 5-stars that specific year for an A&M, developed a bunch of guys. That season won him the defensive coordinator job at Syracuse. He was been the defensive coordinator at Syracuse now for the last handful of years. Didn't quite work out. Now it looks like it was down to like LSU and us. Apparently he was going to sign with LSU, but then rumors started saying, well, maybe not quite yet. Sounded like we came in last minute with an offer. And now it looks like there's a strong possibility he's going to be coming to Nebraska. He's worked with Matt Rule before at Temple and at Baylor. So that would be home run hire, huge hire. Because I think we have a lot of great young talent. Williams Winery, Keona Davis, Riley Van Poppel, Tyson Terry, Malcolm Simpson. There's some dudes on this line. They just need to be developed and age and mature. And then maybe, he's got some good connections to bring in some top tier guys in the transfer portal that are out there. So that would be huge. I think, like I said, overall, I think they're great hires. I think he is, I think Rule has, in every instance where he had to fire or a guy was let go or found a new job, I think he's done a really good job at replacing them. I guess the only ones that I would say he didn't do a great job replacing was Butler to defensive coordinator and Braden to D-line coach. Butler was a great defensive backs coach and a passing coordinator. We had a great pass defense this year into the last 2 games. Braden with the defensive line was definitely a dud hire. Was not a good hire. Was definitely not an upgrade from Knighton. But I think if we can get an Elijah Robinson, I think Elijah Robinson will be the best D-line coach we've had under Rule. I think offensive coordinator hire under Matt Rule. So I think if all things develop the way it should, I think right now Matt Rule could have his best total coaching staff that he's had since he's been here. So it should be interesting. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens in the portal. Speaking of the portal, looks like we have lost Caden Vandermoss and running back Jamarian Parker. Again, nothing like huge. So we'll see what happens the rest of the leading up to the portal. See if after the bowl game, maybe more guys make it official. But one guy I still do not think is going to leave is Dylan Raiola. And even on a lot of the podcasts that I usually listen to or watch, news channels that I'll listen to or watch, they're even kind of starting to walk that back as well. And a couple of them even brought up the fact that it's probably because he doesn't have the suitors that he thought, which that's kind of been my reasoning too. One, I don't think he wants to leave. Okay. I really don't. But even if he did, again, he's coming off a broken leg. Like, who's going to pay him millions of dollars to come transfer to their school on a broken leg? Like, that's a huge risk. And I just don't see that happening. So I don't think he's going to transfer out. I think next year that's who's going to be our starting quarterback. And I think you're going to see maybe, though, I could see next season being where TJ gets packages. And I think it could end up being a little similar to Clemson. And I'm trying to think what the other quarterback's name is. Kelly Bryant? It was Trevor Lawrence's freshman year. And the quarterback that was there initially was pretty good quarterback, right? But Trevor Lawrence was Trevor Lawrence. And by week 4, or after week 4, made the decision that Trevor Lawrence was going to go for the rest of the season as a starter, and Bryant ended up transferring to Missouri, I believe, the next year. So I think, I'm not saying that that's exactly what's going to happen, but I think at least the first handful of games, it's going to be that same kind of thing where Dylan's the starter. They're going to play Dylan like the starter, but in the second quarter, regardless of where the game's at, TJ is going to get 2 series. And then in the third quarter, TJ is going to get, then depending on where the game's at, Dylan will just ride it out. Or if TJ's having one hell of a game, TJ will ride it out. Stability is going to be at, his mobility is. Yeah, I'm going to be very interested to see just the portal stuff. Like I said, I think there was a couple offensive linemen that literally jumped into the portal from Georgia Tech the second the news became public that Jeepway was coming to Nebraska. And I would not be shocked if those 2 guys were not going to be here in Nebraska come January 2nd. Kind of same thing at San Diego State with Roy Manning and Bob Orrick. There's an edge guy, a safety, that both jumped in the portal like literally the day or the day after that the news became public. I would think that those guys are probably going to be coming to Nebraska as well. Again, don't want to see a whole lot of talent from San Diego State come to Nebraska, just because look, we saw it like with Marquez Watson Trent this year, is going to be better than the guys that you have. But sometimes you get an Andrew Marshall, who, by the way, was coached by Bob Orrick at Idaho. So, kind of word full circle there. Excuse me. But yeah, so I think we definitely need to go get a running back in the portal. I think we need to get a good line. All right, sorry. I don't know why. It's like the first 30 minutes. I usually my internet connection is just fine. Then get to these final 15, 20 minutes, and every 2 seconds, all of a sudden my screen goes dark and got that little buffer circle, but we'll power through it. All right. The bowl game has also been announced. We kind of all knew going in, but it is going to be Las Vegas Bowl on January 31st against Utah. And Kyle Whittingham, the head coach of Utah, has announced that he is stepping down. So, yay, they're going to be really motivated. And what's already kind of a bad matchup. But I'm intrigued, though. I'm still very, very intrigued for this bowl game for 2 things. One, let's see what the running game looks like with no Emmett Johnson. Because we still don't know. Because, we could say it here and say, like, Micaiah Nelson didn't do anything and Isaiah Mosey didn't do anything. But really, they were only given the ball like 2-3 times in a game. Like, what were they supposed to do with those 3 touches of the ball? Now they're going to get all the touches. So it's going to be interesting to see that. See what this offensive line is going to look like. Jeep Wade is going to be actually coaching this offensive line all ball practice long. I'm going to be intrigued to see what this defense looks like. Now, with Phil Snow and Mike Eckler being the co-defensive coordinators for this game, Matt Rule's coaching the defensive tackles for this bowl game. Excuse me. So I'm just going to be intrigued more, not necessarily whether or not we're actually going to be able to stop them or anything like that. It's more of like what are they going to look like? Are they going to be flying around much more? Is the effort going to look like it's better? Because, we kind of saw that when we fired Shenander and Bill Bush took over. Did the defense get insanely better? No, but they played with so much more effort that there was better play on the field. Again, didn't make them necessarily overall a better defense, but the effort was so much better that it made up for a lot of things. So then there was better play on the field. So are we going to see maybe just a little bit better play on the field? That's what I'm intrigued for. And because, man, I love Husker football. I look forward to the spring game like it's a normal game because I just get to watch Husker football. Like, that's how much I love this stuff. Which, one thing I'm super excited about, we're going to have the actual spring game again. We're not going to have to deal with watching them do tractor pulls and roping mechanical horses and throwing a football through a basketball hoop. I mean, don't get me wrong. I bought tickets. I went to it. It was fine. It was something to go to. It was nice just to be in the stadium, especially a guy that really can't go to a whole lot of them. So whenever I can, just get there and be back in Lincoln and be around it. It's awesome, regardless of what I'm there for. But yeah, I'm excited for the actual spring game. Yeah, so I'm excited. I can't wait to get to the bowl game. I'm excited for just the college football playoff, which is a whole nother can of worms. I mean, all right, I'll talk about it for a little bit. I am not mad that James Madison made it. I'm not mad that Tulane made it. Okay, those were the rules. That is what got set up. The top 5 rated conference champions get automatic bids. ACC screwed themselves over by having the tiebreakers that they had that put Duke against Virginia in their title game. That's on the ACC. That's not on the college football playoff committee, where the playoff committee messed up is by putting Alabama in. Okay, and in such obvious fraudulent crap done by this college football playoff committee. Okay, BYU got blown out in their conference championship game. They dropped the spot. What was the other one? Oh, no. There's another one that I was trying to think of now. Another team dropped because of their conference championship game, but then Alabama didn't move a spot. Didn't move at all. And they got blown out. Now, if you're going to punish BYU for that, you got to treat Alabama the same way. They should have dropped the spot, which should have dropped them out. It should have been Notre Dame and Miami in the playoff, in the playoffs this year. But SEC got SEC, right? And ESPN's got ESPN. ESPN needs to have the SEC teams in there. Why? Well, because ESPN owns SEC, pretty much, is a way to put it. Just like how Fox pretty much owns the Big Ten. And then ESPN basically owns the SEC. Then ESPN basically owns the playoff. The playoff is only on ESPN family of networks. Now, I know there's a couple games on TNT to start off, but that's because ESPN can sell those rights off. and then they choose to sell those rights off to TNT. So the only reason why TNT has those rights is because ESPN chose to sell those rights to them for these specific games. But ESPN wants all the money. So the more SEC teams make it, the better off. So that's my thing on it. Now, do I think that James Madison and Tulane are going to do anything? No. No, I don't think Group of 5 teams should be in the playoff period. I mean, I think it is almost time to cleanly split off. Now, thanks to revenue, right? All the new revenue for the players, you have to split off. There needs to be the Group of 4 and then a Group of 5. And you can have 2 different tournaments or whatever. But the big boys play in their own thing. The Group of 5 is a whole new level of college football now. And then you have the FCS and then Division 2, Division 3, Division 4, whatever. NAI, all that stuff. I think it's time to switch it up. I used to be a person that was like, well, look, sometimes one of those teams could be that good. A Boise State could end up being that good. The year Cincinnati went, Cincinnati could be that good. But I think the level of play anymore is so different, just thanks to the amount of money that is being put in to the Power 4 compared to the Group of 5, that it just can't be anymore. Yeah, it just can't be. Now, if I don't know. I actually don't really even know if there's a possibility of putting together like a 5th conference of some of the top-notch power guys. Like, if you could somehow find a way to get, let's say, Memphis, James Madison, Tulane into a conference with like Boise State, Washington State, Oregon State, maybe a Fresno State, and like some of those teams could just have this kind of bigger conference and hope that they can get a good media deal that kind of pumps the money in, and then they can have better revenue and sharing and all that stuff to maybe compete with the other Power 4. Maybe. I don't know if that's possible. Or I don't know if you're a Fox or ESPN or NBC, whatever, that's got these media deals. If you go, hey, look, we're going to separate, but here's this school, and this school that we think could benefit from being in a bigger conference. So why don't you go add them to your conference going forward, and we'll up your revenue share, or we'll up your media rights deal. Maybe that's a way around it. I'm not sure, but I think going forward, cut the ties. Group of 5 needs their own championship, and the Group of 4 needs their own champion. And then you got your 12 teams, and you go from there. That's just how I would do it. So, yeah, so it's going to be interesting. Man, Indiana looks really tough this year. The way that they played in that Ohio State game, they look really, really good. I still think it's either going to be Ohio State or Indiana winning the national championship. So I think Big Ten's about to win their 3rd straight national championship. And, Big Ten's going to keep proving that we're the best conference. So anyway, come back to you guys again probably next week. I'll do another let's talk about it style show, kind of go over maybe what's happening in college basketball. If there's any other big news from the football team, whether it's people going into the transfer portal, rumors of who we're getting out of the transfer portal, coaching news, anything like that. But you guys have a great Sunday night. Until then, go Big Red.